watching a live broadcast of the annual Washington County Law Enforcement Memorial Service here at Washington County Fair Park. This year's sponsor is Germantown Police Department is heading up the event tonight. The guest speaker is going to be Village President Dean Walter, along with and if we do cut out the signal, we will have a full rebroadcast at WashingtonCountyInsider.com. This live broadcast is brought to you by American Commercial Real Estate.
Good evening. My name is Mike Snow. I'm the Chief of Police with the Germantown Department. For coming this evening, for taking time out of your busy schedule for this very important event. Germantown Police Department is certainly honored to be the host agency for the 2024 Memorial Service. I knew that was going to happen. So let me say we do recognize that in Washington County we enjoy a great deal of support by the community. We appreciate that. We're grateful and we pledge that we will conduct ourselves in a manner that is certainly worthy of that support. I'd like to thank the sworn personnel that showed up today to pay respect to our fallen officers. I know some of you are coming from work, some of you are going to work, and some of you are here in your off time. We certainly appreciate you coming out for this event. So in 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Peace Officers Memorial Day. The calendar week in which the 15th falls is National Police Week. To date, 58 officers have been killed in the line of duty, 138 officers in 2023. Today we'll take some time to honor the officers, more specifically 3 officers that have given their lives in the line of duty from Washington County. Those officers are Robert D. Backus from Germantown, Deputy M. Schmidt from Washington County, and Marshal Leonard George Frederick Scheriger from the Hartford Police Department. We have made a solemn promise to these men that we will never forget, that we would not forget that they made the ultimate sacrifice, that we would not forget their selfless service to their communities, that we would not forget the loved ones that were left behind. I'm encouraged by the quality of officers that we are hiring, and I'm confident that when the old guard leaves, these officers will continue to honor the promises for the rest of our days. As you all know, you watch the news, the job is not getting easier. At a time when this profession continues to be shamelessly and indefensibly vilified by certain segments of our society, we understand the very grave dangers our officers are often faced with. These men and women standing here today in uniform understand those risks. Yet they put on a uniform every day. They come to work. They are realists. They are stoic in their resolve, and they understand the risks that they face. Each day they put on those uniforms, leave their families behind, and go to serve. I pray for their safety. The men that we honor today are heroes. They understood the meaning of virtue, honor, and service. They understood the risk of the profession. We remember the commitment to serve and honor them in the performance of our duties each and every day. That's how we keep our promise to them to never forget. At this time, I would ask you to stand for the presentation of the colors.
Ready? 2. Ready? 2. Ready? 2. Ready? 2. Ready? 2. Colors.
You may be seated. At this time, we will do the presentation of the memorial wreaths for our fallen officers from Washington County. In memory of Officer Robert D. Backus, presented by Germantown Police Department Captain Pat Burton. In memory of Deputy John M. Schmidt of the Washington County Sheriff's Department, presented by Sheriff Martin Schulteis. In memory of Marshal Leonard G.F. Sugar of the Hartford Police Department, presented by Chief Scott McFarland. At this time, I invite up Pastor Greg Young of Our Savior's United Church of Christ, also the Germantown Police Department chaplain.
It's nice to see so many people here. Would you join me in prayer? Oh God, who watches over us day and night, who guides us in this life and the life which is yet to come, we gather to remember those in uniform who paid the ultimate price, to lift up those who served with honor and dignity and courage, those who made the supreme sacrifice, God, in order that the communities in which we all live might be safe and secure. Gracious God, grant that this selfless spirit that they have displayed inspire that same spirit within all of us, that courage which is within us, so that we too might go forth from this place with renewed purpose and noble determination. And finally, God, we will always remember their sacrifice. For in remembering, we are all inspired. We thank you, God, for their lives, for their service, and for their example. So help us, God. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Our first guest speaker is the village president for the Germantown Police Department, President D. Mulder.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening. As village president of the municipality hosting this year's Washington County Law Enforcement Memorial Ceremony, it is my honor and I consider it a great privilege to be here to speak to you tonight. Across all communities in America today, committed police officers watch over our neighborhoods and work to make our local communities and our nations a safer, more peaceful place to work and live. In tonight's memorial service and throughout Police Week, we honor the men and women who serve the cause of justice, and we pay tribute to those that have lost their lives in the line of duty. By taking an oath to serve and protect their fellow citizens, law enforcement officers answer a vital calling and accept a profound responsibility. These extraordinary Americans work to uphold our laws and serve on the front lines in the fight against crime and serve the citizens they are sworn to protect. In current times, law enforcement must seem like the most difficult and thankless work a person could ever perform. How many of us in the private sector would work for an employer who questioned the motivation of our work and did not show respect for our daily efforts? I believe the person who becomes a police officer is born to this duty. It is a calling to serve and protect, and it is engraved upon their hearts at birth. For the fulfillment of this calling, we are grateful for your commitment and for your service. One example of past gratitude for service was shown within the ranks of the Germantown Police Department, and it reads, on this upcoming week of National Police Week, not only do we want to thank and remember those that have died in the line of duty, but also remember to thank men and women who are serving or who have served in the with the Germantown residents and with distinguished honor. But we would be remiss if we did not also thank the family and friends of law enforcement. We thank you for your support and for the sacrifices that you make day in and day out. The families of the police officers within the department are their rock, their support system, and they remind the officers why they must be on that thin blue line. Police enforcement has many times been referred to as the thin blue line, but that thin line of protection becomes the very thread that holds the fabric of our society together. Today, there are many examples of active groups working to tear away at that fabric and instill chaos by placing doubt about the work the officers are doing. There are many examples within the media and the media coverage that question an officer's intent when fulfilling their duty to serve and protect. I believe President Ronald Reagan best stated the purpose of police officer service in May of 1981, and I quote, over the generations, the protections of the individual and the pursuit of justice have been the responsibility of our police officers. They stand as the guardians of the fragile thread of order and civility that separate a civilized society from mankind's barbarous past. Police officers shoulder the trust of their fellow citizens in their daily efforts to provide the protection and service that are increasingly important to our nation. For without law and order, our society would soon crumble, dashing the hopes of our forebears and mocking the heroes and heroines whose sacrifices have made this great land a beacon of hope and a symbol of freedom to the entire world, end quote. These words rang true in 1981 and still hold the tone of truth today. Ronald Reagan spoke about what needs to be understood and supported by all whom our police officers protect. Now is the time to show open and active support for our police officers and the work they perform, not only during National Police Week, but every day of every week. If we do not show support of our officers when it is needed most, from where will the officer candidates for tomorrow be found? And what will society look like in the future without a community-supported, viable, and committed police force? Each one of you chose your profession understanding the risks. Tonight's memorial stands as a reminder of those dangers and of how men and women have died facing them. We must always remember our fallen officers like Germantown's own police officer Robert Backus and recently Officer Peter Jerving of the Milwaukee Police Department. For each name, there was a family that was left behind. We must never forget how suddenly their pain became and how long it lingers. We cannot cover the grief or repay the sacrifice, but today's ceremony is a way, a lasting way, to acknowledge the debt. We owe a lasting debt to those who sacrificed their lives while serving and protecting our citizens. Debts so great they can never be paid back, but must be recognized and honored. These men and many other fallen officers across the nation live on in our memories as Americans whose courage and commitment have shown us the true meaning of heroism. Now may God bless you, and may God bless your families, and may God bless this great nation. Thank you.
Thank you, President Walter. I would now invite our second guest speaker, Washington County Circuit Court Judge Michael Kennett.
Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. John chapter 15, verse 13. Chief Snow, distinguished members of law enforcement, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and a privilege to be here with you today. We are here to honor and remember those brave and selfless members of law enforcement who paid the ultimate price in service to their friends, to their fellow citizens, and to their community. We remember all of those who have fallen in the line of duty while protecting and serving the innocent, their communities, and those in need. We remember those men and women who said goodbye to their spouses, their children, or their parents before leaving for work one day, as they did any other day, and never came home. We remember especially those fallen members of the Washington County law enforcement community, Deputy John Schmidt, Officer Robert Backus, and Marshal Leonard Sugar. Deputy John Schmidt, age 31, killed while answering a call for assistance from a fellow officer, 31. Officer Robert Backus, age 35, killed after stopping to assist a motorist with a flat tire, 35. Marshal Sugar, age 33, killed while responding to a report of suspicious individuals at a railroad freight depot, 33. Any number of things about these fallen heroes and their stories stand out, their age certainly. But as much as anything, what stands out to me is how these stories represent the everyday risk that law enforcement officers are prepared to encounter in serving their communities. These officers were not assigned to transport a dangerous, violent criminal. These officers were not assigned to conduct a raid on a dangerous drug house, uncertain what lied on the other side of the door. These officers were not dispatched to disperse an angry mob that was decomposing into chaos. They were not assigned such things. Their assignment was much more familiar: to assist another officer, to assist with a flat tire, to investigate a vague report of suspicious individuals. The types of assignments that can be given to any officer on any day at any time. These brave men accepted that assignment and paid the ultimate price for it. The story of these men and the story of countless other fallen officers tells you what it means to become a member of law enforcement. It means putting yourself on the front line to confront the problems of society and the flawed human beings that inhabit it. It means to be depended on by those in need. It means being present and willing to serve any fellow citizen, regardless of whether they deserve it. It means to help people, whether or not they may be willing to help themselves, and whether or not they will ever appreciate the help that they are given. It means that you go to work each day knowing that any day, any shift, any call, no matter how routine it may seem, can be your last, and yet you're willing to serve. These sound like impossible standards. Were it not for the sacrifices of heroes like Deputy Schmidt, Officer Backus, Marshal Sugar, and countless other fallen officers, you would not expect human beings to be able to meet them, and yet they do. In 2024, the duties and activities of law enforcement are more visible than ever. The proliferation of technology such as squad cameras, body cameras, cell phones, private security systems such as Ring doorbells and other similar surveillance systems, and nonstop coverage on cable news, streaming services, podcasts, and the like have cast an enormous microscope on the interactions between law enforcement and the citizens that they serve. There are some who demand perfection in an imperfect world, who demand flawless performance by human beings who are by their very nature flawed. Yet, as amazing as it is that some are held to these impossible standards, what's even more amazing to me is how often law enforcement meets and exceeds those impossible standards. Before I became a judge in 2022, I was an attorney in private practice for 16 years. As an attorney, the types of cases that I handled would often intersect with law enforcement in one fashion or another. Many times it was representing individuals whose interests were adverse to law enforcement. Many times it was representing individuals whose interests were aligned with law enforcement. Many times it was representing victims of crime who, to seek justice, depended on law enforcement. Now, as a judge, I of course preside over many cases that intersect, directly or indirectly, with the law enforcement community. In my experience, the microscope placed on police today has revealed the virtues of the men and women of law enforcement, not their flaws. The patience, understanding, compassion, wisdom, and unmatched selflessness of so many members of law enforcement is now on display more than ever. And this is happening at a time where the challenges presented to law enforcement are greater than ever. The danger to law enforcement does not come only from the intentionally violent and dangerous members of our society. It can come in the form of mental illness or mental health crises. It can come in the form of chemicals, the mere exposure to certain substances presenting certain dangers to law enforcement and first responders. The dangers and challenges come from so many angles, known and unknown. On Tuesday, just this Tuesday, May 14th, the FBI National Press Office issued a release. According to the release, from 2021 to 2023, more officers were feloniously killed than in any other consecutive 3-year period in the last 20 years. The rate of officers assaulted has increased each of the past 3 years. 2023 marked the highest officer assault rate in the past 10 years. For most of us, in most lines of work, such statistics are not even compiled. But for law enforcement personnel, the risk to life and limb is the nature of the job. And yet every day the men and women of law enforcement show up for work to protect and serve, ready to meet and exceed society's unrealistic expectations. So many of us are asked as young adults why we are choosing the career path that we are choosing. Perhaps it's a career in law, perhaps it's a career in medicine, perhaps it's a career in teaching, perhaps it's a career in any number of areas. And so many of us as young adults, when we're answering that question, why do you want to be a lawyer or a doctor or a nurse or a teacher or whatever it may be, answer the question by saying, because I want to help people. For those who choose a career in law enforcement, the answer is different. The answer is because I'm willing to risk my life to help people. And that is a very different thing. And that's because the men and women of law enforcement who choose that career are indeed very different. Precious few professions in our society deserve to command respect and appreciation just by virtue of the fact that it was chosen. Law enforcement, however, is one such profession. So when we remember those members of law enforcement who gave their lives in service to their community, we also need to remember the choices and sacrifices made by them. But we also need to remember the choices and sacrifices made by their loved ones, who know their loved one will have to miss important things due to long work hours, but who don't know for sure if their loved one will come home from work. We should remember what John Schmidt, Robert Backus, and Leonard Sugar taught us about what it means to be a law enforcement officer. We should remember and we should be thankful. We are. May God bless those who have laid down their life for their friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Kennedy. We would ask you to rise for the rifle salute performed by the Washington County Sheriff's Office Honor Guard. remain standing for the retiring of the colors. The last selection played by the Pipes is Honor Our Fallen. It has been as a tribute. Chaplain,
Please remain standing. This is a prayer for charge. To all the sport officers, to all who serve, and to all of us, would you join me in prayer? And may the God of noble purpose, hope, peace, and justice sustain you, support you, and encourage you as you go forth, coming to serve, continuing to serve and protect. Go forth with the memory of our fallen heroes. Go forth with integrity and fidelity. Go forth with bold courage and renewed sense of duty, knowing that your calling is most noble. Go forth with the knowledge that God goes with you. May all of you, may all of us go forth to serve in honor of those who paid the ultimate sacrifice with renewed determination and inspiration in our hearts. God bless America. God bless our fellow. God bless our troops.
Thank you, Pastor. You may be seated as the Hartford City Band closes this also. Greater Milwaukee Fire and Police Spikes and Drums, we could all agree that the service is not the same about the place. Outstanding. Thank you all so much. I would like to thank all of you again for coming on here. Take time out of your day to honor our fallen. Certainly makes a great deal to us. We're grateful for your support. Thank you. And lastly, I would like to thank Kevin Moraine, Lodge 10 for turning over police for the refreshments. So let's dig into that and the rest of the fellowship. Thank you, Emmanuel, for all the work you did, and Emmanuel, thank you to the Honor Guards, Washington County, Hartford, and West End. Outstanding job. Thank you.
You've been watching a live broadcast of the annual Washington County Law Enforcement Memorial Service at Washington County Fair Park. This live broadcast